What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 83 of Unfiltered. I'm ChanManV, and look what we have today. For once, we've been trying for weeks now, but Richard's actually here with me and Steven. But Steven, what's going on, man? How's your day been going?
Pretty good. Just chilling.
Just chilling. All right. Rich, where you been, man? Where you been?
Sucked into the vortex that is Vegas, and I've been out here for like, I don't even know now. Is it like 2 months or something? Fuck knows. Anyway, it's just crazy because I'm doing a lot of work. I don't think it's any big secret that people know that I'm going to be starting like a new job soon, and I'm trying to get everything in place. So the reason that I've kind of like missed the last couple of shows is just like crazy scheduling and ridiculous hours that I'm working, because basically through the day I'm kind of like doing the preparation to move into my new glorious life, and equally I'm like on the night I'm kind of staying up super late and writing all the stories that I need to get written before I actually start. So it's kind of like being like, I don't know, Tyler fucking Durden. Like on a, like this is what I do on a night, like when my insomnia kicks in, I go and I splice pornography into children's movies or whatever the fuck. But in reality, I'm just writing about all the esports fucking villains because I might not get a chance to take them down before I start my new job. So
I see. Oh man. Okay. So, I mean, that's it.
It is good to be here. I missed you both immensely. Haven't missed some of the people that watch this show quite as well. I didn't realize what a bunch of blithering cretins who communicate only in broken memes that we actually had watching this show. I've had to block a lot of them on Twitter because they're like, I bet he won't show up. Yeah, I'm tweeting that I'm going to be there in 30 minutes. Yeah, look at me. Fuck off, mate. You know what I mean?
Well, just to be clear, just so everybody, and I've mentioned before, but this is going to be your last one, as a co-host, just because of all the upcoming things that you've been, definitely hinting at there. So hopefully we can make this a good one, man. And got at least a video, a cool video just to show at the end of the thing. And of course we have the audition videos too, which we'll also touch on a little bit. Having some issues
I
with
saw some of them. I saw some of them. Lycans in particular. So,
the audition.
Fucking Christ.
Come on, that was actually kind of funny. Right? I mean, it was funny. I got to give Lycan credit for that one. That was actually funny.
Okay.
Anyways, but yeah, lots of topics today. We're gonna again, like Richard kind of already touched on it, but maybe we'll whatever else you can share with just what you're going to be doing next. Lots of stuff going on with just talent and some controversies dealing with casters and particularly OG and Riot recently, but also a few weeks ago we had the whole Shanghai incident with Too Good, and I wanted to save this topic for whenever you did eventually make it on, just because I think it's an interesting one. Talent unions coming up, that kind of discussion. Lots of lawsuits happening. Aaron Andrews, Hulk Hogan. I figured I think some of us will have some opinions on those and what that means for even companies like Gawker and Kotaku, which is obviously a big site for gaming.
Ex-companies like Gawker.
Ex-companies like Gawker, exactly right. And then just things happening on Twitch. I mean, lots of new category, the whole cooking thing, and Nate Shot and stuff like that. We'll have some Q&A at the end of the show, obviously. I know you guys are going to have a ton of questions about it, and just about everything. And then, try to have a great show for Richard's last one as co-host. Okay, I know we're having a little bit of, just some issues with connecting to Twitch. I think Twitch just generally is having some issues, so we'll have to deal with that, have to bear with that, this whole, probably most of this episode, hopefully not. Okay, well, Richard, you touched on it a little bit, but, anything else you can share with what you're going to be doing next, or no? Just...
it's one of those unfortunate situations where I can't really.
Yeah.
I hate coming on Unfiltered and not being able to speak my mind, but... The reality is that I've been winding down what I've been doing content wise and stuff, because I need to start focusing on something else. And the last 12 months, it's just been a real tiresome grind. It's like I've been looking for an out, to do something better with my time.
Yeah.
for a while, and it's the opportunity's finally presented itself, and I'm going to take it this time. I've been on this show multiple times and said, yeah, I need to do something else. I need to do something else. And it's just bullshit. And life just carries on. And I continue to do the same thing. But this,
We all do that.
but like, they're doing the reporting, has been, its usual draining self. Like, I talked about this, on previous shows. I think on the last show I was doing, like, I look at the people that are inheriting esports journalism. I look at the people that have got the prominent positions, and have gone on to kind of represent what esports journalism is about. And they're appalling hires. They're not good for the industry. They're not good for the business at whole. And I can't keep taking the mantle of having to be the guy that does the investigative reporting. Someone else has got to take that up now. It's just too tiring. And you go through the same process every time. You break a story, it's a lie. Then it's like, it's like I say, fans out there, it's like the 7 stages of fucking grief. You've got like denial, anger, all of this bullshit. And then eventually acceptance right at the end, right? Well, that's no good, because that's usually represents a month of me just getting serially fucking, pissed on social media, and I just can't be bothered anymore. Like, I really can't be bothered anymore.
So I mean,
the last go on.
I mean, you're insinuating that if you get hired by a big, corporation or organization, that you still can't do investigative journalism. Is that true? Because you mentioned a lot of other. I mean, definitely not you, but like,
my next role will not involve it. My next role will not involve investigative journalism of any kind. So that's over. And that's something that I've got to relinquish. Like, even if I wanted to keep doing it, which honestly I don't, because it is just, I look at some of the stories and I think about the amount of time invested into them. Like the iBuyPower scandal, 6 months. Just literally 6 months of my life spent on that, story before getting a resolution. I've done it before as well, where it's not untypical for other stories where I've spent like 3 months. Sorry, am I off center?
Yeah.
That's just me leaning into the mic. It's my bad. Where I've spent like 3 months of my life researching another story, 1 month, like just doing stuff like, even stuff like when I wrote the Sapinder article, which of course we all know how that one went. That was a huge investment of time, even though I wasn't necessarily doing anything beyond researching newspaper clippings. And, it's just, I can't keep doing that. I can't keep investing that degree of time to get the rewards that I'm getting from it, which is just to be castigated repeatedly. I just can't do it anymore. In the last episode of Unfiltered I appeared on with Thorin, that was a big that was a big eye opener. Seeing the community sort of a community I've always held in high regard kind of push back on 2 people that have worked.
All right, we're gonna have to talk about this, because a lot of people think, a lot of people obviously first reaction that you're leaving Unfiltered because of that last episode. And
well, it kind of is. I mean, ultimately, I this new job, it means that I got to focus on that and I can't do other stuff. But equally, I could have kept on doing the show for right up until that point where I start. And it just wasn't worth it. Just after that fucking reaction, it's just like, what's the point in having a show called Unfiltered? You get 2 people on who have always entered into the spirit of that show and usually paid for it in one form or another. Duncan especially. And we give our unfiltered opinion, and it's just like, yeah, but we don't like it. We don't want to hear this. Stop this. You are, like I say, it isn't so much that, like, attacking me in that instance, but like Duncan, like say, he sat there at 417 pieces of StarCraft content, all of which are to a very high fucking quality, and that's what the StarCraft community is going to drive out. Meanwhile, they hold pieces of shit like Cats and all these other fuckers like Tastosis, who are doing all this shady shit behind the scenes. And actually hampering the StarCraft scene and using it for their own gain and telling everyone, haha, don't look at the big fire behind me. It's all going to be okay. It's all going to be fine. As long as the money keeps coming in my bank account, it's all going to be fine. And they're the people they want to hold up on a pedestal. Well, fuck that. I've got no time for that anymore. And I simply...
Well, that wasn't... That wasn't the.
Well,
I mean, it was as much. It was as much a complaint against me as it was like with you guys. I mean,
fuck
you
that.
guys
And
were
again,
just
they,
doing.
they force you in this position where
They
you have to
don't-
come out and like
no.
semi-apologize.
I don't
for, like,
have
what,
to-
for putting on a fucking show for free and booking guests and doing all. It's fucking retarded. It is retarded, and the reaction. The reaction from the community was like super disappointing to me. Like I always thought, like the one person the one group that would fucking actually be able to understand, like, Duncan's right to an opinion, my right to an opinion, would be the unfiltered audience. And I would have thought that the people also that would respect at least people who've made a positive contribution to their community with the StarCraft community would accept our right to come on a show and at least voice our opinion about StarCraft. So yeah, it's fucking. It was just disgusting. It just literally, it was like any desire I had to do the show ever again at that point just fucking disappeared, because it's just
Okay,
I feel like
well,
the problem wasn't so much like exactly like I feel like there were other problems going on here.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't your opinions. It was just the way I set it up.
I think the problem
it's
was
the way I
that
set
it
it
seemed
up.
like Thorin was like spewing shit like all over the community to every single person, and then when it finally came time to have like the show to discuss it, I think people were just really burned that it seemed like there were just two people with the same opinion on, rather than anybody giving the other side of the story.
Well, here's
that's
the thing.
why people.
So I would ask you, Stephen, as obviously one of the founding members of this show and a long-standing co-host and someone I've worked with, when has Unfiltered ever been like? When have we ever stipulated? Oh, we've got to have balance here. When have we ever said that? We just book the guests and we just let people talk about what they want to talk about and voice their opinions. It's great if there's conflict. It's great if there's disagreement. It's great if there's discussion. But how many times, for example, have me and you been on a show and we agree? That was never a problem, right? So why was it a problem?
I mean, it really depends on what the topic is, though. I think that usually we try to get people of differing points of view, right? Like you and Reynad like had a lot of differing opinions, and I think that show was really interesting. We brought Red Eye on before, who has a lot of like differing philosophy on how to host events and what we've done in the past. Like I feel like we've done quite a few shows where we've had like a guest come on presenting like a differing point of view. It doesn't always happen, obviously, but I think that like I feel like the reaction to that show was like some of the most obvious stuff. Like I call that a million miles away. Like it was pretty obvious. I mean, like when you start talking about like highly controversial opinions, and then you only have one side come on, I feel like that's always going to be like a recipe for disaster. I think.
And that's why, I mean, and I know, and that's why I accept a lot of the responsibility for it, because here's the thing: it could have been an amazing show, okay? And the thing is that it's my responsibility to make an amazing show, because I plan everything. I'm the guy who plans everything. You guys are co-hosts, sure, but I decide how the show goes and who comes on and whatnot, and that was one of those things where, like 5 things lined up, like went a certain way that we didn't have, like it should have been an awesome show. And 5 things happened like consecutively that made it end up not being an awesome show, which is, I mean, still it was a good show. It just wasn't as crazy good as it should have been, because Huck should have been on. Like that's just what it ended up happening.
Yeah,
but it was
maybe that's true, but again, it's not like we're under any obligation. Right?
No, it's not.
It's to bring on. Oh, okay. Well, Duncan feels this way. We must find a counterpoint. We have never operated on that premise.
There's no obligation.
One says that anybody's under any obligation,
nobody.
but just because you're not under obligation to do something doesn't mean that like we can pretend that there's not going to be any community reaction if you don't. I think that's kind of a ridiculous statement, right? I think that's pretty obvious.
They're going to get
like there's a lot of things that you're never under obligation. Like I'm under no obligation to stream ever. I don't have a contract for it, but if I were to stop streaming for a week, it would be pretty predictable what the community backlash would be if I would have just turned my stream off for a week and not say anything. But I'm not obligated to do it. I think that's kind of a poor argument. I think that like you could do this in literally any industry. Imagine if a big guy or 2 big people thought that like everyone in CS:GO was hacking or whatever, and then there was going to be some big CS:GO show to discuss it, and like 2 people went on that both had the exact same opinion. Like I think that's a show where the community is going to be like, well, this is shit. Where's the other side? Like what the fuck? Anytime you attack the community and you do it like relentlessly, which Thorin did via Twitter, you're always going to want to see people have like some kind of balanced discussion on it, and not just 2 people that agree on the topic. I think that's like again, I think that could happen in literally any, not even any gaming subreddit, but in any like industry. Like if you have that kind of a discussion, I think people are always going to be pretty upset about it.
Well, I'm amazed it took whatever it was, like 80 episodes, for it to happen, because the amount of times that we've had a show where we pretty much agree in unison on a topic, I could probably just go into the YouTube channel now and pick out 5 episodes.
I think
You know,
it's pretty easy to
no
find
one- no
episodes
one's
in the
talking
past.
about
As
it.
somebody that I relentlessly read like comments on anything having to do with anything posted on social media, and I've read through a lot of the Unfiltered comments too. There are people that do get upset when we have certain episodes where we're talking, especially when we're talking about other gaming communities,
Like Riot,
that we didn't
like
bring somebody to represent that point of view. There are a lot of people that get upset about that kind of stuff, and it's happened on multiple episodes. But I mean, the StarCraft community is the one most closely tied to this show, so of
Yeah.
course it's going to be the one that has the most vitriolic response to that kind of thing. But there have been plenty of people. You can go back through a lot of the Unfiltered videos on YouTube. You can find a lot of people that are upset. They're like, oh, why didn't they bring in somebody else to talk about this thing? Like, these guys aren't even part of this community. Like, I think that's a pretty common sentiment.
Yeah, like League of Legends stuff, right? I mean, we're always bashing something about Riot and that sort of bit. But those guys, they just don't watch the show, right? I mean, we can't even promote the show in the
Well,
League of Legends
they're not
community.
allowed to.
Yeah, exactly.
Because,
But so StarCraft is different,
You're not,
obviously.
as long as I'm on it, you're not allowed to submit it to the subreddits. So I mean, that's and unfortunately, what we know about League of Legends people is they're sheep. They don't have a very high level of critical thinking. I feel quite comfortable making that generalization, having served them content for years. That they play a game that has a system in place that is designed to basically wreck your brain and turn you into a cook, and not critically think about stuff. And unfortunately, the vast majority of people who play that game, because they're susceptible to that and they're on average younger than other esports communities, they don't go out and seek out content. They want it on that subreddit, which is why Riot have sought to control that subreddit so vehemently and have achieved that goal. So, yeah, I mean, obviously they don't get to watch this show. I think they'd like it if they had that opportunity, but unfortunately, between Riot and the mods, that's just never going to happen. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's probably a good transition into just talking about Riot and League of Legends. There's some news came up yesterday in terms of Riot and OGN casters. Obviously, my Christo obviously being like the biggest figure, and just kind of being the face of, I guess, talking about the issue yesterday. There was actually an article posted too that we can show. Hold on, let me show real quick here. But basically, it's about the OGN casters, the OGN company, having negotiations with Riot about having the casters, join the crew for the mid-season invitational. Which, for those of you that know League of Legends or don't know League of Legends, it's probably the second biggest event of the year. Next to the actual World Championships or the LCS Championships at the end. So it's a big deal not having these casters, 2 of the biggest casters in Korea, 3 of them including Papa. But this is a big deal because they basically tried to negotiate rates with Riot. They ended up declining because the rates were just so low. And this is bringing up, obviously a lot of discussion on just what standard rates should be for casters across the board. And this kind of leads to a little bit more discussion about just talent union, which we'll get to obviously with the whole Dota 2 thing too. But I want to get your thoughts first on this. And Rich, I know you have probably a ton to say. So Steven,
yeah, I was going to say if Steven can take point on this one, because I've just realized I think I'm actually using the default laptop microphone and not the.
It's fine. It works fine though.
Yeah, let me just check. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear that.
Yeah, we can hear that.
Oh, right. It must be on this.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. But Steven, any thoughts or comments on just Riot, offering, or even just talent turning down because the rates were too low, especially a huge high profile event like this. But it sounds like the rates were somewhere between 40 to 70% of what I guess they believe is the standard rates.
I feel like this is the first time that this has ever happened. I can't remember at least ever reading anything similar to this of somebody dropping out of a potential casting gig like that. I think it's pretty cool that they did it. I mean, everything that their rationale for doing it, right? Because they didn't want to set a precedent of talent getting fucked over. It seems like it was a pretty noble intention. Maybe there could be something else going on behind the scenes, but yeah, I mean, I don't think there's too much to say about it. Obviously, it sucks if Riot is underpaying people compared to what other people pay, but
yeah, I mean, obviously it's a really big deal given that, I mean, most casters I would think are in positions where you've got the dev, you got like one of the biggest events in a game, or in a space. Of course you're going to do it, even if you're taking 50%. I think most people would take just, I mean, I wouldn't say they would only take plane and living housing expenses at this point, but they would take a huge discount if they were able to at least get the exposure of being in front of the camera at a huge event like that. Rich?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, look, there's a lot going on here, which shouldn't surprise anyone because this is esports and it's hugely political, and this is a political decision. It's not necessarily about the things that it appears to be on the surface. For the longest time now, Monte Cristo has been kind of beating banging the drum against Riot. He's not a fan of the company and the way they do things. He's been one of the few vocal critics of Riot that's been allowed to maintain like having a job and having influence and being invited to events. And that is solely predicated on his popularity. That's why he's allowed to do it. He's that popular. He's the exception that proves the rule. Anyone else, Riot will just push out, on the fucking, iceberg to die, like fuck off, Eskimo style. You're persona non grata if you ever go against the company. In Monty's case, he's been allowed to be vocally critical of Riot, not just on social media, but even on broadcasts, where he's criticized the current meta game and patches and the way it worked, and is still, mainly because obviously he's employed by OGN. I'm guessing they couldn't. Riot can't have a direct influence over it at the moment as things stand. But in general, he still gets invited to the international events that Riot do control. Now, this is true. Riot do pay below industry standard. This is inarguable. And they're not, I will qualify that by saying they're not the only one.
Yeah.
Certainly if we just laid this solely on Riot's doorstep, we'd be being very naive and very unfair to Riot Games. But they do pay below industry standard because ultimately they've never had to do anything differently. No one's ever stood up to Riot and said this is unacceptable. No one's ever said to Riot that you've got to start offering better rates, because everybody knows it's exposure. Everyone knows it's good for your brand. Now, when you see people like Panky, Chris Pankhurst, who's a great guy and a guy that I have a lot of time for and a lot of respect for. He's a British League of Legends caster. Yep. He goes on social media and says, well, it's an honor to be invited to an event like this. That might be true if you're down the food chain, with all due respect, like he is. It maybe is an honor but for somebody like Monte Cristo, it's not an honor, it's an expectation, because he's the best at what he does in his field. And I'm not just going to sit here and suck Monty's dick. I actually find him insufferable at times. No, seriously. I think his ego doesn't necessarily align to his abilities, which is saying something, because his abilities are very, very good indeed. But he can be an insufferable prick. It's very sanctimonious, pompous, all of that stuff, right? That's just real talk. Just to show that I don't have an agenda. But by the same token, you need the leading English-speaking Korean expert at any event that has Korean teams there. If you don't have that, you're selling the fans short. And Monte Cristo knows that. His OGN, colleagues, Doa and Papa Smithy, they know it too. And they've leveraged this position, not just to get a better deal for themselves, but to apply pressure to Riot, a company that they enjoy hauling over the coals, because Riot is not a very nice company and is filled with fucking douchebags from the ground up.
How much of it is that Riot has full-time contracted casters and they don't feel...
Yeah, it's a factor. It's a factor, but again, you can't compare anyone who's employed by Riot to Monte Cristo. They don't have anyone that comes close. They literally don't.
Especially the Korean, the Korean, like...
Yeah, he not only fills a niche.
Yeah.
He not only fills a niche, but he's just incredibly good anyway, whether he filled that niche or not. Right? You would rate him above, I don't know, a fucking Crepo. And Crepo's obviously got the benefit of being an ex-player. But in terms of being an on-screen personality, like, you may as well have a cardboard cut out there. You know what I mean?
Oh, man.
Cardboard cut out, scripted jokes and memes. And, Yeah, you're fucking great, mate. You're not the fakest fucking arsehole in esports, are you? So,
Okay.
you know, like Monte Cristo's actually got personality. He's actually got
Yeah.
wit. He can think, like off the cuff. They don't have a lot of people like that. Deficio is somebody, and I think it's hilarious that people hold Deficio up as being the best caster. Because I remember when Deficio first started, and I was like, he's going to be an amazing caster. And everyone was like, you're a fucking retard. It was one of those situations where I actually wrote a positive opinion piece about someone or something in esports.
Wow, the rare ones.
Yeah, and people just wrecked it and were like, no, Deficio will never learn English. He'll never be a good casting talent. He's boring. And I was like, this guy's actually going to be the voice of the LCS. You can go find this. It's on Esports Heaven. I wrote it. It's absolutely true. And of course, now he's like the fan favorite. Everyone's like, Deficio has to be there. I love Deficio. Can Deficio cast every game? Yeah, exactly. It's almost as if people have to grow into the broadcasting experience and they don't start out as the finished fucking article. Now, they have got people that are charismatic, are fun, do kind of are a little bit playful on a Riot broadcast. But equally, one of the reasons why the OGN crew is so good compared to the Riot broadcast is because they're employed by OGN and not fucking Riot. And they don't have to obey all the ridiculous rules like, this patch is completely shit, but we can't talk about it. This bug's happening on screen, but we can't talk about it. This team's playing badly, but we can't talk about it. This game's already over at 15 minutes, but we can't talk about it. That's going to last until 45, even though the result's already decided. Nothing can happen that's going to change the result of this game. People can't talk about that because if you do, you get on the Riot naughty train. And let's be fucking clear. Deficio's been on that, and he's another example of how if you're popular enough, you can get away with it. Because let's not forget, Deficio, when he did all that Copenhagen Wolves bullshit and had talks about potentially leaving Riot. And people have short memories. Deficio was going to leave Riot and take a coaching job. And because he had the temerity to do that, they fined him, banned him from casting, and then banned him from casting Copenhagen Wolves games forever, as if that ever does anything. Like, actually, that's a blessing in disguise, because those games fucking suck, because Copenhagen Wolves suck. But anyway, I think that's all past it now, and he's got a bright future with the company.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, the point is, obviously Riot know that they hold all the fucking cards. But this is one of those rare instances where fan power actually means that they're gonna have to take a few lumps and bumps publicly because they're not willing to spend on the talent that fans want to see at this event.
All right, so let's talk about what the standard rates should be, right?
I'll
okay, so we don't have a talent union, right? And that's something that we can bring up in a second, but in terms of rates, okay, how are we going to decide that? I mean, I've definitely seen, in the last 24 hours or 48 hours that, people are, even OG, I think mentioned, we're going to try to figure out what the going rates are for, casters in all these sports. And then we're going to try to establish, like, this is the standard rate.
Well, so I've been approached by lots of people about this because what people don't realize is, unlike the days of old when it was a fucking old boys club and people didn't want to help each other out, what we've got going in Counter-Strike is we actually do help each other out. We all talk about each other's rates, how much we earn, what we believe other people should be asking for. We look at each other's contracts and are like, don't sign that. That's not in.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's nice.
Yeah, for real. That's how fucking tight we all are in the Counter-Strike crew. Like when Moses was, making his decisions about whether or not he was going to go freelance, whether he was going to sign with people, fine. When Blue was going to sign with ESL, everybody rallied around him to give him advice. And we're like, look, this is going to be your first big gig. You should take this. This is what you're worth, blah, blah, blah. And we all helped each other out. We all talk very openly about how much money we earn because it's the only way to ensure no one gets bilked. Duncan won't mind me saying this, but for the longest period of time, he wasn't getting his market value because nobody talked about it. It was like, I don't know, 18 months, 2 years ago, we sat down and we're like, so what do you actually make for an event? And Duncan said, well, I get this. And I'm like, dude, you could probably ask for more. You're one of the main attractions. And because we had that conversation, we were able to do it. And I've reached out to other people in other games, Hearthstone people, StarCraft people. I'll talk openly about my rate. I'll tell you right now, I'll say on air, I charge $1,000 a day. except in circumstances where I know maybe the company can't afford it and I want to work the event anyway.
Right, flight and living plus $1,000 a day.
Yeah. And obviously you've got to fly me out and put me up in a hotel, right? That's what I believe I'm worth in the Counter-Strike space. Now, again, it's negotiable because there's some really cool events that can't afford it. You know, there's some really good, and again, I'm not going to name names, obviously, but there's some events that are like, come on, Rich, that's a fucking stretch, right? And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll knock it down. Sometimes I even half it. I'll do $500 a day for an event that's just got cool people there, right? But my usual rate is $1,000. You've got,
Well, okay, so
to knock me down.
So that so what you did there, halving your rate, I mean, that is generally a really cool thing to do, right? But is that hurting the industry too, by whenever you do make decisions like that instead of just really holding to your rate?
No.
In terms of what Richard Lewis is talking about, I don't think it necessarily hurts, because it sounds like what he's saying is sometimes you have events that are put on by really good people and they're trying their best to do a cool event, but it's not like, I don't think Richard isn't talking about having his rate for like a fucking Valve event or for like a major or something. It's more like a couple guys have a cool idea and they're trying to put on an event and the budget is like really constrained and they really want you there, but they really can't afford your going rate. But you're like, yeah sure, okay, I'll do it. It sounds cool. It's
like a TESPA event. Like I think those guys like casted the Lone Star Clash events way back when for maybe even free, honestly. So, okay, I see what you mean.
But and that's the thing. I have worked events for free.
Yeah.
And his thing, this is where the argument holds up. Steven's absolutely right. It's you can't, right? If Riot don't want, right? Riot are a company that did $1.6 billion in revenue in 2015, according to Fortune magazine. Let that sink in. $1.6 billion, right? Most of that predicated on microtransactions, of course, but $1.6 billion in revenue as a company. This is a company that employs over 1,000 people worldwide, right? Despite having one game in their portfolio. By contrast, recent estimates put Valve at about 350, and they've got a bunch of award-winning games in their portfolio. So the idea that they can't afford the extra is absurd. They do not have a leg to stand on. So you have to say quite bluntly, when Riot come and they're trying to fucking lowball you, you've got to stand up to them. Absolutely. You can't get fucking lowballed by Riot. That's ridiculous. It was the same with Too Good when he revealed post Valve, and I know we're going to talk about that situation in a bit, but he revealed, post Shanghai, where he said actually Valve were trying to pay no fixed amount for the talent and they were just going to pay you in transactions.
Just tips or whatever.
Profit,
right?
Valve terms. That is ridiculous to do that for the international. I'm sure Valve realized that. Like when they see it in black and white, they're like, oh God, that's not a good look at all, actually. And they did change it accordingly. But the fact that, according to Too Good, and I've got no reason to doubt him, that they were even going to try and run that is just, it's not good enough. That's unacceptable. So, when Riot try and lowball you, you've got to stand up to it. And I'm sure Monty and all those guys, if there was a really cool event and they were like, look, we're at budget, we just can't do it, they'd take the pay cut. To put it in context, again, I've got no dog in the fight anymore, so I don't give a fuck. DreamHack, when they were hiring people for Collusion of Poker so they could assemble that legendary fucking talent pool, they were going around to other talent so they could increase it and say, will you take a pay cut?
Oh wow!
And I'm not gonna.
What you mean talent in other games to like, or you mean
talent just in the Counter-Strike?
Oh, okay.
And it was if the people who were making the most take a pay cut, we can get more talent there, and we did that so everybody could get to do a major, and we could have that awesome talent amount. DreamHack actually asked us to do that. So that's how tight we are in the Counter-Strike community. That's why all this bullshit about rates and where, if you just talk to your fellow professionals instead of trying to be prideful about, oh, this is how much I earn and shit, it actually benefits everyone. And even just at a simple act of saying I charge $1,000 a day, maybe there's someone out there who thinks they're better than me at my job as a host and they want to charge more than me, and they go, well, if Richard's getting $1,000 a day, I'm worth $1,500. That helps.
Well,
That's market value.
I think you're insinuating something that's kind of interesting too, which is the competitiveness, right, of casters. And one thing that you've pointed out multiple times in CSGO is that you guys are pretty good about spreading it out. Obviously, the majors, they decide who goes to the majors, right? They choose anyways. But I think generally CS:GO, you guys have been good about trying to foster some new talent and things like that. But how much of a problem is competitiveness in the talent space?
Well, I mean, it's ridiculous. I can tell you examples of commentators that have been driven out of regions, driven out of jobs because they lowball. They use market forces to their advantage, and they go in and they'll say, yeah, you can have the top tier talent, but they're going to charge you this amount. I'll do it for half if you pick me. And you people have very conflicting views on this. Some people say that's a dirtbag move, you know, and some people, like some people are like it's a dirtbag move. Other people are like, well, that's what you have to, that's fair enough. That's just exercising market forces. That's that's supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
But seriously, doing that. It's cost people their careers.
You have to be really careful for that too, because this is an industry that, all bullshit aside, and I'm sure even Richard Lewis will admit, is fun as fuck to be in. Like nobody that works in this industry would rather go and do any other kind of job, like an office job or any other kind of work than doing here. And you have to be really careful that we don't start to mirror like the video game development industry, right? Which what Lewis just described is literally what happens in video game development. Like, oh, well, hey, we're crunching for a deadline. You're going to be working, 70, 80-hour weeks. You don't like it? Guess what? There's somebody right behind you ready to step in and take your job for half your fucking pay. So it's like, and that shit can happen in esports too, where you're thinking like, okay, well,
it has been
you don't
happening.
think about the long term. Yeah, you don't think about the long-term ramifications of undercutting, competition. And it's like, before you know it, well, hey, casters are getting paid, $200 to cast a weekend event in a foreign country. Well, travel is paid and you can share a hotel room. And it's like, well, what happened? How did we get here? Well, if you underbid each other over and over and over again, this is inevitable,
And I'm always kind of, I don't want to bring it up, but one of the reasons why people don't talk about what they earn is because they don't want people to know so they can get more work. That's like one of the recurring things.
What do you mean by that? Like,
okay, your rate is a form of leverage, right? Your rate is a form of leverage. Like if you go out and you start telling people what you earn, then maybe people can undercut you, right? Maybe you actually do charge secretly. Maybe you charge a little, less, than you should. And you don't want to tell people that because it's like a shameful aspect to it as well. But actually, it's charging that little amount. It below your market value that gets you the work and keeps it coming consistently.
Sure.
Because it is a competitive industry. And here's the reality. One of the scummiest things that these companies do, and this is all tournament organizers across the board, is they use talent to be the face of their product, and they use talent to do all these things at great risk to themselves, whether it's filling when there's a delay or a DDoS attack or whatever it is. It's the talent that goes out there and basically carries the can for the tournament.
Okay.
And it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And yet when these big companies sell, be predicated on the product that you've built, you don't see a fucking penny of that. So you take all the risk and you get paid, what is a meager amount a lot of the time. So what I'm sick of hearing about is fucking companies talking about, yeah, esports has arrived. It is comparable to real sports. We're bigger than the NBA. We're bigger. Right, all right, fucking pay your broadcasting talent what they're worth then, you fucking scumbags. But they don't do it. They're never going to do it. They're not interested in doing that. They know talent is the one area they can scrimp on because, first of all, there's always somebody that's willing to do it for cheaper, as Steven says. And second of all, they also know that vanity is, do I get to be on TV? Do I get to be on a stream? Oh, my me. Do I get to say memes to 50,000 people? Oh, I've arrived. Be still my beating heart, right? There'll always be some fucking asshole that actually thinks it's a fucking big deal.
But it is a big deal, Rich, right?
It's a job.
No, come on, Rich. All right,
no. Don't misunderstand. It is a big deal for sure, but like that's the problem is when you have one person who is of this kind of dreamy-eyed, looking at it like, oh, this is a really fun career, which it is, and oh, I get to be on TV, and this is actually so cool, which it is. While the other people are looking at you like, look at this fucking sucker, like how easy it is to make a quick buck on this dude. Like, this guy is totally fucking starstruck. Like, of course we're gonna rip this guy off, you know?
Well,
You have to reconcile those two things.
But it gets back to just what you were saying before, Rich. Like somebody who's up and coming, this is like a huge deal for them, and maybe they do it for like pennies, and the exposure is actually the value, that enough value for them to do that and take a hit there. But it gets back to talking about what standard rates should be about casters. Like casters are not at the same level. Like you said, Monte Cristo is not at the same level as somebody else. No. And should they be they're negotiated separately right now, which I think that should be right. So how do we like measure these standard rates based on how popular or how big these casters are? Because
at the end of the day, for me, a standard rate has to be dictated on what they bring to the broadcast. So for example, I should not in any way command the same amount as Anders and Semler. There's just no way. Because
as a caster or as a host? I mean, as a host, they shouldn't get as much as you as a host. So
right, if I was running a tournament, this is how I would look at it. I would be like, who do I need here? And I would Anders and Semler are the first names.
Sure, yeah, of course.
If they're at the tournament, I don't even think it's necessarily legit, and they're gonna have to cast fewer and fewer. Counter-Strike tournaments in 2016, because we're getting it, we're getting a bit overcrowded now. But they've got to be there, I think. And they're the premier casting duo. They are the voices of Counter-Strike for hundreds of thousands of people. They're the people who got them into the game. So they have to be there, and they have to command a bigger fee than me. And if they don't command a bigger fee than me, then there's something very wrong with the model. It's broken. Now, in terms of hosting, I'll be honest, I actually don't enjoy hosting. I know that might come as a surprise to people because they do it all the time. Not really a fan of it as an exercise. Basically, what you have to do is you have to dial down your personality to make everyone else look good. And in fact, somebody criticized me for that after I did an event recently. There was like this big post on a Reddit thread.
Richard's gone soft. He's gone soft.
No, Richard Lewis is nothing without his other talent. All he does is make them look good.
I know that. I know that feeling.
My fucking job, you idiot. Incredible. So yeah, I don't really enjoy it because I do have a personality, and unfortunately, you never really get to show it off as a host. It's just about keeping the conversation moving along. And if you go down a cul-de-sac where Thorin's going to start talking about geopolitics, we get away from that. Back to the broadcast, guys. And that's what you have to do, right? But anyway, you can scrimp and save on a host. You could bring, it's better if you have a good host, but you can scrimp and save on it. You can bring in someone with not so much experience. And as long as you've got the premier analysts and the premier casters, an event's pretty smooth. So you've got to look at it this way. Anders and Semler have to get the most, and then you work your way down. And I think people realize who in our little group, who's worth what and who's just starting and who should get less. Unfortunately, nobody in every scene is living in reality. I talked about tastosis earlier. There's a prime example of people that still think it's 2010. It's quite sad. Some people will never understand what they're worth.
Well, that's what's kind of interesting.
Markets can change.
Okay, so first off, when we talk about standard rates, so we're talking about, I guess, a range then, right? I guess the highest end range would be, guys like Anders and Semler, and then maybe people just starting off would be at a bottom part of that range. But we're not talking about like a set price. We're talking actually about just a range. Okay, that's cool. But you did bring up a good point with just StarCraft, right? I mean, StarCraft 2 started the trend of, or at least organizers and things like that, they started the trend of the casters being the draw to these events, right? And it's the complete opposite of sports. Like, we don't even know a lot of times who the commentators are, quite honestly. I mean, they get paid. I mean, compared to the players, do I care about Jeff Van Gundy versus LeBron James? No, I don't. I mean, he's awesome caster. I mean, he's awesome analyst. Jeff Brenus too, but I care about the actual content itself, right?
Carry weight. I wish I watched Real Sports more because I can't weigh in as much. I know, like for poker, like the casters are, even if they're not the stars, like you watch for the players. Like, I wish I knew their names. like 2 guys that do poker that are like the top of the fucking game, and you know that like the bands are going to be good, they're funny, their analysis is on point, they have history with everybody, so they can give you funny anecdotes and shit. Like I don't remember the 2 names of the guys, but anyone in chat that watches a lot of poker know what I'm talking about. But like I mean, while they're not like they're maybe the star in so much as
no, they're definitely
they are
funny.
esports, like,
I mean,
they're still pretty important. They're still pretty important.
yeah,
in soccer, we've got like people, like, it is important. I just think it's more implicit. It's not really as in your face, but you do hear the same 3 or 4 voices repeatedly, and nobody really questions why. It was like Jonathan Pearce, who started out on Channel 5, worked his way up to being the BBC. The legend John Motson. These people are the voices of soccer or football, obviously, and I think a game is diminished if you don't have them.
Yeah.
Doing the commentary. So I'm not sure I entirely agree with that, but look, for real, one of the pet peeves of mine in esports is we don't really let the games do the talking. I was just on another show talking about how I don't understand hype men in 2016. People would come on the stage and they're like, let's get ready to rumble and all this shit. Fucking come on, man.
Oh, that's awesome. You don't like that?
No, like, let's put it in perspective here. In the UFC, you get Bruce Buffer come in or whatever, right? And he does it like just a little bit, like while he's introducing the big fights, then it gets everyone hyped. You don't do it for the undercard, right? And it lasts,
Sure.
I don't know, all told, a minute, 2 minutes. In fucking esports, the hype man is out there, like, for fucking 10 minutes. And also, who loves this peripheral? Yeah.
I don't know about that part. Okay.
Is this a sports event, or is it a marketplace? Get your bananas, free for a pan, free. Fuck off. It's just retarded now. We shouldn't be doing that. It makes us look cheap and tawdry. We shouldn't have hype men anymore. We don't need it. The fans are hyped enough to watch the games, and that's what they want to see. So,
the overall production's important. I mean, you can't just like go straight into the games. I think if if you're looking for a high quality type of production, it's nice to have that kind of lead up to it. But 10 minutes of talking about peripherals, yeah, I agree with you there. But generally,
and they bring out, and this is the guy who owns no one cares. It was like when ESL.
Yeah.
From fucking Raid Call in the middle of a fucking ESL.
I remember that. Yeah.
You remember that? The guy from Raid Call comes out and it's like cue cards. It's just like every other fight program on the market, but nobody knows how we fund it. Is this thing on? Like, what the fuck? Why is this happening?
They do that at all these events. Like the owner or the president of so and so comes on, and it's just like, yeah, we don't really care, but okay, you have to do it, sure. So at the esports, is it just because production wise we're not able to at least like get to the point where traditional sports are, where the content just does all of the talking and we just don't need quite, just the casting is more, I wouldn't say peripheral, but it is secondary to the actual action that's going on, or it's more integrated into it more so than a little bit of more of each of them. Like right now, like I said, I would say it's like 80-20. I'd be 80-20 when I watch basketball. I mean, sometimes that Mark Jackson, Jeff Van Gundy say something pretty funny and insightful, and it's like cool. But for the most part, I'm just watching the games.
Here's the key thing here, Chris. All right, and that is this. It's different in esports because in an NBA game, right, at no point is it or super rare. Like, is the game just going to end because of a court failure? Right, or a player can't figure out how to tie his shoelaces. At no point is a broadcast going to have to fill for 40 minutes because LeBron James can't find his lucky sweatband. Right, but unfortunately, we do that in esports all the time. That's why you pay top dollar for the broadcasting talent. Yeah. Because when things go wrong in esports, which they always fucking do, it's those guys who go out and are like, doing the fucking jazz hands tap dance combo to entertain the masses. And that's why you can't fucking scrimp and save. That is why you cannot scrimp and save. And when you hire somebody like a Monte Cristo, you get market value. If there's a DDoS attack, Monte Cristo can talk for 2 hours about the virtues of this team over that team in fucking South Korea. He can do that. That's why you pay.
Well, you bring up a pretty interesting part. It's good. It's a good transition here to Too Good, situation with a Dota 2, and Too Good was put in a situation like that where he had to fill a lot of time because of just the production that was going on, the scheduling just being way behind, and literally they were filling, I think, hour and a half, right, of of literally nothing prepared and just going on the fly. In his particular case, audience loved what they did. For the most part, few people, particularly few people from Valve, did not like how it went, and Too Good got pulled after one day of hosting the event, which we've never seen that happen to a host at any big events. I don't even think we've seen that with a caster, quite honestly, but I've definitely heard you've seen casters being pulled from like small events. Just in the last year or 2 years.
Small casters getting pulled from small events.
Well, like even just like small events, like I'll just throw out like a Hearthstone, like ATLC, like Reckful got pulled because of all just some crazy stuff. But never at a big event has like major talent been pulled like that. So this obviously caused a lot of controversy, and it's been discussed a lot. And I wanted to save this for you whenever you came back on, Richard, because what are you both of your opinions on just him getting pulled after a day? They hired him. They kind of knew, they know Too Good. They know what Too Good's going to be. They've worked with Too Good in the past for two TIs in the past, so they know what to expect. So putting him in that situation, pulling him, what do you guys think? Steven, how about I'll start with you.
I thought it was pretty bad. I really don't understand. I feel like Valve fucked up really hard. I think most of the community sees it that way too. Too Good seemed like he did his due diligence. He, talked to IceFrog. IceFrog told him to be himself as much as he can be, and he kind of did it. And seems like he got super fucked for it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that's generally right, and I guess being yourself, obviously there's a big range of things. I guess being yourself.
That's absolutely not true.
Okay.
There's not a range. It was
sure.
Too Good. IceFrog was talking to Too Good, to James Harden. We all know if I would have hosted an event, a multi-million-dollar event, and I'm talking to James Harden and I tell him to be himself, I know exactly what I'm asking. If you don't, then you should either never be involved with arranging talent or doing anything, or you should just kill yourself for being honestly that stupid. Like, it's pretty obvious what you're gonna get when you tell Too Good to be himself. Like, I feel.
Okay, in my opinion. Fair enough. Yeah, Richard, thoughts?
Yeah, the whole situation's a mess, and it's not a good look for anyone, really. And it was one of those situations where it's like, okay, but just real talk right from the get-go. Like, I don't watch a lot of Dota. I despise the community. They're elitist idiots, and they love witch hunts and bandwagoning and drama. Most of the talent in Dota exists in this twilight zone of being too scared to truly voice their opinion because players come out and criticize them, and players have this huge reach. And because of that, they're all like, oh, I mustn't offend a player. This would be the way. Like, just concentrate on being good at your fucking job for starters, right? Worry about everything second. Let's do that. And then by the other end of the spectrum, you've got all these fucking retards who just pander to the community, like that old fucker Nahas or whatever. Like when look at these stats I've done. I'm super respectful because I have white hair. This guy's a fucking douchebag. This guy just goes on Twitter and stirs up drama and then walks away going, but why the drama, folks? Yeah, all right, mate. He's a fucking clown. Anyway. So, fuck the Dota community just as a whole. Like, just fuck it in its face. It's ridiculous. But this Shanghai major, I did tune in a little bit because I'd heard it was going to be a car crash anyway. People from the Dota community were fucking messaging me before the event saying this is going to be a car crash. There's stuff going on with Perfect World. Would you be willing to write about it? Would you be doing it? And I'm just like, well, let's just see what happens. Let's see how it fucking unfolds. And of course, it unfolded as catastrophically as a lot of people in the know expected it to do. Now, one of the few good things about the broadcast was Too Good. I think we can all agree that. I think James, at various points, with all the delays and all the problems, carried that broadcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some stuff I wouldn't have done. The whiteboard stuff was just like, come on. It's like, it was funny and endearing, I guess, for like 5 minutes. But then after a while, it's just like, yeah, let's stop using the whiteboard for prop comedy. But actually what he was saying was funny. It was entertaining.
Yeah.
I can understand, though, why when you're in fucking Shanghai, I can understand why talking about, how the Chinese internet is blocked might not be a great idea. But ultimately, I don't even necessarily think that's the problem. The problem clearly stems from disagreements with the production staff wanting to throw it to a break, and Too Good not doing it. Now, what I'll say for that is I've been in positions where it's like I'm being told to go to a break and I want to finish a point, or I think we're in a good segment, and I'll delay it. But ultimately, you've got to listen to your cues, because you've got to have a good relationship with the production team.
Of course.
Production will very often, by accident make talent look bad. But you should never make the production look bad, because again, it's all about the show. The show is the most important thing. And that's what's going to remain. That's going to be on the VODs. That's what's going to last forever. So you've got to work with production and make the best. And if you've got any disagreements about how the show's being handled, you need to voice those backstage. You don't just flat out refuse to go to a break or whatever. I would never do that, because you don't know what commercial obligations the event has. They might need to run 20 commercials a day, and while there's downtime, that might be a good chance to catch up on that obligation. Now, James is an experienced
sometimes
Sorry,
I kind of agree with what you're saying there, but I think it was pretty obvious what was going on here. I don't think they were trying to meet any break obligations. It kind of seemed like this is going to be a 2-hour break while they figure out production-related issues. And
I get that, and it's always better. Look, one of the things I hate about fucking esports is whenever there's a problem, sometimes they don't even put the talent on air. You paid all this money to have these guys here, and it's like, here is a screen with 2 hours.
I think hasn't DreamHack been pretty notorious for having tech issues and just cutting to commercial for
Of course.
Oh yeah, of course. We've had those long
one of the greatest
audience
one of the greatest
cuts.
lies ever told. Because everybody liked DreamHack, because they were like the crazy uncle of esports. They always used to get a pass, but they were fucking terrible for that. They were terrible for that. Like, the events never ran on time. But it's like, here's some Monster Cats, guys. Do you remember this one? Break them.
Whoop.
Like a fucking brain tumor, you know what I mean? Like, what?
No, we used to just watch the audience. We just watch people just walking across the aisles and shit like that.
Yeah. When you've got top tier fucking talent sat in a chair twiddling their thumbs, fucking get those guys on camera and just get them to fill. And James was doing that, but again, it doesn't fucking excuse not going to a break when your production's telling you. You want to argue about it afterwards? Do it. You want to get in the face of the production and say, look, has to be my show. I'm the fucking host. Do it. If you want to make that stand, do it. But what you can't do is, in the moment, you can't fucking fuck with production. They're under stress as well. So I can see the argument one way. That said, I don't think it was handled well at all. I don't think James did anything that I could see that makes me think that he deserved to be fired, deserved to be removed from the event. I think James is an incredible talent and a hugely entertaining guy.
This is one of the things that bothers me the most. Not only that, but James is really smart. One of the smartest people that I've known. If you tell him to tone it down, he'll do it. He's not stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if you give him some guidelines, or even if production would have just said what Merchant Lewis said here, hey, we understand you want to go on, but we need to be in control back here. We can't just have someone hijack the show and then just kind of follow you, or something like that, right? If you tell James that, James might disagree and maybe stomp his feet a little bit or be a little sad about it, but he'll listen. He's not going to get fucking shit canned from the event.
Exactly.
Yeah, they took the absolute worst case fucking outcome or of all the things they could have done. They're all right, we have no choice. Fucking fire him from the event. Holy shit. If you were dealing with a 16-year-old, sure, but James is a smart guy. Just tell him.
This is what I'm talking about, though. This is what happens. This is a fucking major event run by Valve, and it feels like the organizational aspect of it was, let's just see what happens. Let's just invite Too Good. Let's have no defined parameters on how to behave or how the show goes. Yeah. And let's just stand back and watch what happens. And this is what I'm talking about when I say it's the talent that carries the can. Because, let's be real, firing Too Good overshadowed the fact that they'd hired Perfect Love, despite numerous failures.
That's right.
Despite the fact that the production company was fucking up the event, despite the fact that there'd been sound problems, delays, despite the fact that this company's been involved in shady hiring practices. Nobody wanted this company to be involved. And basically what happened was, Gabe Newell comes out and says, hey, we're firing Too Good. James is an ass, the meme.
Why did he do that?
Well, look, I'm never gonna criticize someone for being real in this industry. If that's Gabe Newell's opinion,
Yeah,
power
but
to
the
him for
problem was
voicing
that it wasn't real. It was one of the fakest, like, wannabe, like, acting real, because he had no interactions with Too Good. I think
Well,
that
again,
was one of the
according to
dumbest
James,
things.
like to be fair, all Gabe said was those few lines.
Yeah, but
you
I'm
know,
gonna
on
give
Reddit.
James a little bit
I
of
would as
benefit.
well.
I don't think James is gonna release a statement like that saying he'd only had contact with Gabe 2 times in his whole life and put that out publicly if that wasn't true. Like, because he would know he would get fucking roasted for that. Like, I think that was incredibly stupid of Gabe. There was no reason for him to blow him up publicly like that. Like, I think that was just really dumb. I don't know. I feel like that's indefensible from Gabe's point of view. It didn't help anybody. It didn't make anybody look good. It trashed James. It brought more drama to a situation that definitely didn't need it.
Conversely, it shows Gabe cares. You know,
Does
like
it- does it, though?
People
Well,
criticize them for not
it
caring
shows
about
he's
their
paying
own
attention to
events.
the
What does it show that he cares, though? James is an ass. How does that show that he cares? For them to step in after if they really cared, why would they hire the same production company that's already fucked up things in the past for Valve events? Like, I don't agree that it shows that he cares. To me, it looked like, okay, he has no idea what's going on
Yeah.
here, and he's trying.
an emotional reaction.
There's nothing to
Okay, but
gain.
when
There's
you're the
nothing to gain for
CEO
him
of
to
a
do that.
company that generates, 300 to 600 million dollars in profit a year. Like, I don't think that or revenue a year. I don't think that you can have an emotional, like, that's why you're the CEO of the company.
Well,
so that you don't have an emotional
that's why
outbreak and make your entire company look bad. Like, that's part of the responsibility of being a CEO. Like,
That's why you have a PR manager. You have a PR manager to handle all of that.
well, not if you're a
and
Valve.
not let it-
Valve doesn't believe in hiring PR. Valve only
It's
has
like-
engineers.
We're on,
And it
we're on a
shows
show
sometimes.
called Unfiltered, and we're talking about the virtues of PR. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I
Well,
actually,
because
Well,
we
no,
can't
no,
pretend
because
it's
there's nothing to gain. There's just nothing to gain from
why
that.
companies
Like,
like-
there's,
There's
like,
a reason why CEOs don't hop onto Twitter, like the CEO of Walmart, and start tweeting about politicians they like and hate. Be like, when you're the CEO, like people in the United States always get really mad at how much CEOs get paid. Like, CEO pay is way too high. Like, this is ridiculous. Well, one of the reasons why CEO pay is so high is because the CEO has the ability, and every business owner knows this. The CEO single-handedly has the ability to sink an entire company and every employee at any given point in time. If fucking Bill Gates isn't even the CEO of Microsoft anymore, if he were to start tweeting, "I hate Spicks and niggers," holy fuck, you would see like a huge reaction to Microsoft's, like, to everything.
being
about
real,
their business,
though. It's
to their
being
market
real.
share, to their stock price, like, or if,
Microsoft
Apple's
have that
doing-
virtual Twitter bot to do that for them.
Oh,
or
that's
if
true.
Apple would do the same, if
That's
any
true.
large company CEO were to step into Twitter and start, making crazy statements like that, like, you would see it reflected in the value of the company instantly. The CEO has a ton of power. Like, the CEO doesn't get to make, like, emotional statements. Like, "Oh, I was just being emotional." Like, that's there. I don't know. I feel like it's really, really unprofessional. Like, for someone
Well, they're just-
of our stature on Unfiltered, or even, lesser people, even people that do, like, I say lesser people, but even people that aren't exactly in the CEO position wouldn't be expected to operate like that. Like, I feel like Gabe definitely.
Well, it's about what can come out of it, right? Like, and is there anything for them to be gained, like positive to be gained from going on and doing that? In his situation, there wasn't anything. Like, what could possibly have been good about
Well, I
him saying he's
disagree,
an
because
ass?
the point I was making was
Yeah.
by saying that and making that statement about James, it completely overshadows the perfect world hire, doesn't it? Because what did we all talk about in the aftermath?
Oh,
we were all
I see what
talking
you
about
mean.
Too Good, the firing. Then people were talking about, do we need a talent union? And while all of that was going on over here, it was like, yeah, we hired Perfect World, and we really fucking shouldn't have done that. And that was happening over here. And then they were like, yeah, we're not going to work with them again either. So, yeah. And that's like, do you see what I mean? Like, actually, in terms of business, it was pretty fucking smart, because it puts all the focus on the Too Good situation and none of the focus on the Perfect World situation.
Right.
And sometimes, again, business techniques, CEO, sometimes you do need to come out and do shit like that. You need to come out and make these strong emotive statements. And you're like, well, why is he doing that? And while everyone's debating about that, oh, yeah, our stock price is tanked. Yeah. And away you go, and no one talks about it.
Do you really think he did that to redirect people?
I think Valve is one of the smartest companies in the world. And if anyone was going to do something on that corporate level where they were going to deliberately throw a distraction bomb to obfuscate a mistake, yeah, of course. I don't think it's far-fetched.
I think
Wow,
that Valve
okay.
is one of the most unique companies in the world, but Valve has some very huge shortcomings when it comes to PR or community feedback or dealing with communities. I think that that's always been,
Absolutely.
and I
And
think that
there's a very
everybody in
good
the
video on
Dota
YouTube.
and CS:GO community would agree with that. When you talk about the lack
Yeah.
of communication between when the next launch of new maps is, like how long we went without another pack or whatever being released, like I think that Valve has historically always been horrible when it comes to PR. I don't think that there's any kind of higher calling or any higher thought that went on with what Gabe said. I think it was just an emotional outburst to try to make it look like he was plugged into the community, and I think
There's
it was
there's a very good YouTube video which you'll be able to find, and it's a talk about why Valve don't do community interaction and don't do PR, and they explain it in very clear and defined terms. It's a very good watch. I don't know what you need to Google to do it. It was actually posted a few times in some of these Reddit threads, but people should try and check it out. And basically, what they say there is that, like once you get into that dialogue, problems can come up along the way, and then you can't fix them, and then because you've entered into this dialogue initially, and they've all got very valid fucking reasons for it. Some of which you can guess at, some of which are a bit more clever. But Valve are super aware of like their lack of community interaction. It's a deliberate business technique that they employ and they believe is the best way to go. Whether you agree with that philosophy or not, that is Valve's philosophy. Valve is one of the most profitable companies per employee in the fucking world. I think more so than Apple. So,
but that's only because right now they have. That's only because they have a monopoly on digital distribution right now. Right, Steam is the thing that carries.
Yeah, but how did they get that monopoly? They got ahead of the curve.
Steam, because of Steam. That's it. It's only because of Steam. It's not because of anything like CS:GO or Dota.
They got ahead of the curve.
Yeah, sure, but I'm just saying that, like, I mean, Blizzard was the top dog fucking 5 years ago. I mean, things change fast in the tech world.
But nothing compared to that. Nothing compared to creating a digital distribution platform that basically makes retail redundant. Right?
Sure, but what I'm saying is that if somebody were to get on. If somebody were to get on and start to compete with Valve in that arena, I think you would see Valve change their PR thing like very quickly. Like, I don't think I could go to any gaming community belonging to Valve or any gaming community that works a lot through Steam and have people say relentlessly positive things about Valve's community handling. Like, they might say things like, yeah, Steam is cool, and yeah, like Valve,
I'm not disagreeing. What I'm saying is
but
deliberate. It's not that they're doing it and they're going,
yeah, I
really wish we could nail this community feedback thing. They deliberately choose not to do
I
it.
understand it's deliberate, but I'm telling you that I think that that's a bad decision, even though it's deliberately done, and that as soon as somebody comes along to compete with Valve, that will change immediately, because everything you see on anything is always about bad Valve PR, bad Valve Steam support, bad everything in terms of other PR. I don't think that trend would carry on if they didn't have a monopoly. So even if it is a deliberate decision, I think that it's kind of a silly one, in my opinion. But I mean, as you said, Valve is an employee that deals with hundreds of millions of dollars a year in revenue, and they only have, I think, 340 employees or whatever. So they are hugely profitable, and their profit per employee is fucking massive. But
so like just back to the point that is just I mean, was it handled optimally? Probably not, but certainly while we were talking about James, we weren't talking about the perfect world problem.
Right.
And
that's true, which was a huge,
a
which was the
did
source
talk
of a
about
lot
it.
of it, honestly. Like what if the production, what if there wasn't a 2-hour break or a 2-hour fill time that they had to do? A lot of this probably wouldn't have happened. So
exactly. So if and then this is the thing that again nobody talks about in the industry. Look, the fan base, you can't rely on them for critical thinking a lot of the time. I didn't see this, especially in Dota. I didn't see this argument made a lot, which was like exactly the point you've made, which is if Perfect World don't fuck up, James doesn't have to fill, this conflict doesn't happen, James doesn't get fired. And this happens all the time in our industry. I keep talking about it. The broadcasting talent has to go out and fill for the fucking tournament organizers. Tournament organizers do when it goes south. You can't, you can't put someone like James on camera and go, right, you've got free reign, carry the show, and expect him to not at some point go down a risque cul-de-sac. Same with Duncan. Here you go, Thorin. 2 hours. Here's the open mic for you.
30
Duncan.
minutes,
it's
man.
It's a matter of time before, exactly. It's a matter of time before something edgy comes up, and then you don't know on any given day how the community are going to handle it. Are they going to laugh with the joke?
No, but
are
here,
they going to realize it's a parody or a pastiche, or is the wrong person going to see it and start an email campaign? And here's the thing: do tournament organizers come out and stand side to side with the talent? No, of course they fucking don't. Fuck you, you're expendable.
You know what I remember from that?
Someone else.
You know what I remember from that day, Rich? is I remember when that break was happening, and there being 6 threads on Reddit saying, Yames is amazing, or oh, he's carrying this, oh, he's saving this event, and all this. That's what I remember seeing, and then shortly after, James is fired. Like, what the? I mean, I remember the whole community saying like, what the fuck? What just happened there, right? And obviously, there's a lot of stuff going.
I just gotta say something. There's a
Okay,
retard in
go.
chat. He's triggering me.
Oh God! Why are you
so
reading
fucking
chat?
dumb. No,
Oh
listen,
man!
You are so fucking dumb. He goes, 10 minutes ago, they were criticizing DreamHack for not using their talent for filling. Right, okay, yes, that's absolutely right. When delays happen, definitely put the talent on screen to fill. That's nobody's not saying to do that, you fucking idiot.
I don't think
what I'm saying is that when they do go, like, first of all, you should never have to fill. Because a broadcast should go perfectly, you cretin. And then on top of that, if you do fill and something goes wrong, the fucking tournament organizers should back you and not throw you under the bus at the first fucking opportunity. How hard is that to grasp? These are not mutually exclusive concepts. If you cannot handle that, this is not the show for you, because everybody on this show is smarter than you, and you're a fucking idiot.
Okay.
You are an idiot.
All right.
Right? These are not mutually exclusive concepts, you fucking idiot. This is why I hate doing these shows. That guy thinks he has a valid opinion. That person thinks he's entitled to express his opinion. You're not. You're too stupid. Zip this. Watch. Learn. Fuck off. How are these people allowed?
Stop reading chat, Richard. Stop reading chat. I swear, man. You love the triggering, man. No, but to talk about just the whole point about it shouldn't happen is actually a really good one, because I can give you an example, like just with traditional sports, right? It never for the most part, it never happens in traditional sports, but when it does happen, it's the most awkward shit. And this is when you start to appreciate esport talent. Is remember the Super Bowl when the lights went out? You remember the most painful 15-20 minutes of like on-air broadcast? I don't know if you guys remember that, but the lights went out about 2 or 3 years ago on the Super Bowl, and then they just had to fill. It was like Phil Simms, and I can't even remember like the other 3 guys up there, but it was so painful. It was the most awkward moments on TV I've seen in a long time, especially in sports. So the fact that our the esports, our talent's able to do it for 2 hours is amazing, because if you put those guys together, no way they could do it. Maybe Shaq and Charles and Kenny and those guys could do it for 2 hours, but definitely not the commentators, and we shouldn't be expected to do it either. Okay, well, that was a pretty good segment. Why don't we take a really quick break here, just maybe like a 1-minute break, grab some water, and then we'll be right back.
Okay. We clear?
Yep, we're clear. Go.